Thanks again for being here. I'm enjoying the Patreon, and I hope you guys are. I am going to be more consistent with it. I'm not going to post here every day. I want to keep the stuff that's on here different and valuable enough that hopefully it entices people to stick around and others to sign up. A couple weeks ago, we shared some information on weapons I carry around, why, and I want to expand on that with some jeans on and some belts, and I want to go over the couple of belts that I like and a couple of knives that I like, and also both just to highlight some knife makers that we really respect and like, and some of them that we've gotten to know personally, and also just a little bit about the hows and the whys. I want to qualify again, same way I did last time. I'm not in law enforcement, I'm not in the military. I've been doing weird shit and carrying weird shit around since I was a kid. I mean, since I was 13 or 14 years old, my sensibilities have told me that it's important to be ready for anything. I didn't know what the fuck that meant at the time, but now I do, and you know, a lot of trials and tribulations have gone into that. So I'm not afforded the same, you know, I guess luxuries, if you want to call them that, or accommodations as someone in law enforcement or military. So I understand that there are risks to a lot of the things that I choose to do. I'm not telling you to do them, I'm just telling you how I do them and why. First and foremost, if you're running around in sweatpants like I was in the last video, it's important to consider how things are going to hang on to your body. Really strong clips are going to hold on to sweatpants. Less strong clips are not going to. It's really important to make that distinction. Here, easy. Belts, most clips are going to fit on. As long as the belt measurement lines up with the clip measurement, you're usually good. That being said, a lot of cheaper makers and a lot of cheaper people are using clips that are fallible. I've broken clips. Anyone that carries things around with any type of regularity has broken clips. I tend to not have a problem spending money on things that are going to possibly help me keep myself safe or others safe. I'll shortcut on very few things that I think have actual value. That's why I live a frugal life in every other way. So I want to highlight a couple of belts, and then I want to tell you the one that I wear all the time now because it's my favorite. The first one that I really like, it's kind of a pressure system belt from a brand called Tenicor, Tenicor. It's the simplest of all of them, and it just interlaces into itself and then locks. And it has never moved an inch. When I first saw this idea, I blew it off immediately. And of course, as I should have, I looked into it further and realized that they are onto something here. This thing sits flat. It's extremely light. All it is a piece of canvas and a clip, and it's excellent. So for light stuff, if you're wearing really light pants or something, this is perfect. It's almost invisible when it's on, and excellent choice. The other one I'll highlight before I talk about the one that I really like the best is Next belt. This is much thicker. It's definitely not the most comfortable belt. And the coolest thing about it though, is you can hear it index, which means there's a million micro adjustments for this thing, and you can get it to fit whatever you want. If something significant were to happen, or if I really thought that something was going to happen that I needed to carry everything that I need to carry at one time, I would go with this. Because you can make it extremely wide, you make it extremely narrow, with no adjustment period of time at all. And you can carry an enormous amount of stuff on here. Again, this is not surprising, and I'm not trying to play Batman, but I've had a full-size gun, a magazine, a tourniquet, and a knife on this thing, and it's comfortable and fine. It sits where it's supposed to sit. Good choice. But the belt that I like the most is this Alterations Limited belt. The dude is cool. He's onto something very smart. You see it stretch. So it stretches, but it just stretches enough. So it stays put. The clip is plastic, so it's non-permissive. You're not gonna get, you know, if you needed to get into a concert or something, or any place else with a metal detector, the belt's not gonna run it off. If you're carrying something plastic for a reason on it, that's not gonna run it off. And it's just a very, very ingenious design. The dude is he's also a cool dude. The other thing about this that's cool, and I've only done this maybe 10 or 15 times, but it doesn't have to go in belt loops. It can actually sit up on your torso and cinch very tight and have nothing to do with your waistline. It's very, very cool. Alterations Limited. I'll mention the makers in here. Those are the 3 belts that I use. The Alterations Limited belt has been living on me since the day that I got it. And I just wanted to share those couple of options with you guys. There's a million belts out there. I have a ton of stupid belts. The tactical belt business is idiotic. Simple, effective. If it doesn't move when you have stuff on it, then great. It's a home run. Anything above that is personal preference. So moving into carrying things. The Alterations Limited belt is stretchy, but it isn't stretchy in the sense where it's going to change if you've got something on it. So this is a 43X. It's not a heavy gun, but it's a gun with a full magazine in it, and it's also great because this stretches and it moves with your body. I've had serious spine problems for a long time. For many years, I would carry a revolver on the left-hand side because the right side of my spine wouldn't let me properly carry a gun. So the Alterations belt is great also because it really allows for like freedom of movement with no pain and no restriction. And everything still works exactly the same as it would with a much larger, much firmer belt. In addition to that, last time we went over the revolver. This time, let's just talk for just a couple of minutes about a few knives. If I'm carrying something around in jeans and I'm carrying a pistol, what I'm gonna carry usually is either something on the other side that draws like the pistol, or something in my pocket with some sort of ripcord. So this maker doesn't get tagged because he's a fucking scumbag loser, but he makes excellent knives. And right now I'm carrying around something that I have the toggle on, latched to my belt. And so if I need to get this thing out, your hand just moves towards it, you find the toggle first, and it really does come out really, really easily. Nobody's gonna see it unless you want them to see it. That's the way it should be. If you're gonna carry things in your pocket and you have to fish for them, you're probably killing the point of having that tool if you have to fish around for it. So always think about the extraction method. The nice thing about the ripcord on the belt is that can also just go right in your waist and draw out the exact same way. If you needed to, it can go in the back of your waist. If you needed to, it can go in the back of your pocket. That's the really nice universal thing about the ripcord. The next one to mention is Milmac. Milmac makes an excellent knife. I ended up in a very serious situation that I've told the story on the internet because I wanted to use it for research purposes, and it's important to know what you're talking about, and I'm unfortunately able to now say that I know what I'm talking about. This is the knife that I had with me. It's extremely light. This sheath is ambidextrous. It's insanely sharp and extremely ergonomic, and the way that he's got the handle is really pretty perfect. It doesn't dictate how you hold it. You can hold it however you need to hold it. But the little edge at the end is very similar to the edge we put on the mace. It's just there to keep it where it's supposed to be. So of course, this would sit vertically in your belt. And of course, it's also gonna need to cant a little bit. It's not the most comfortable, but again, the Alterations belt makes it so that it doesn't poke into you because the belt accommodates. And the same thing, the little edge on the top makes it extremely fast and extremely easy to get out, even without looking at it. Milmac is a great choice. The dude is, again, awesome. Makes phenomenal knives. Going back to the ripcord option, our friend at Rib Splitter Knife Works makes extremely affordable, extremely sharp, extremely durable blades. And the nice thing is he makes double edge ones, he makes single edge ones, he makes reverse edge ones, he makes anything that you would want, and he also makes some really unique stuff. he's got extremely good edge geometry, and they are sharp as hell. This one is made from a really, really old file. So if you tend to need to file your nails or anything else on the road, he always makes a few in each batch that have a really interesting characteristic, like being made from a 100-year-old file or something. And this would work almost the same as the other one. The only downside to this, and it's not really a downside, it's just a preference, is most of his knives don't have a hole so that you couldn't put a toggle on there. You couldn't put a redundancy ripcord on the end. The sheaths are cool, very simple. Rib Splitters is worth mentioning. He's a great dude, and he also keeps things very, very affordable, and that's a real thing. If you want to try a couple of tools, that shit gets expensive. I've been extremely fortunate. People have helped me, given me some of these things. Some of the stuff I've paid significant discounts for. Others of it I've bought full retail, and I'm happy as hell to do it. But it's nice to be able to get your hands on a few things so you can sensibly recommend it to others. Next, we'll go to a very simple, just a kind of a simple show-off one. This is something Ed gave me when I was down in Tijuana, and it's almost an Elvia, but it's not. And it's extremely thin. So it's essentially weightless, and it's got a very short cord. So this would just go in your belt, and then in your belt. And it would just sit in your lap, probably just like a pistol or something else. And it's got a little teeny tiny ripcord on it, which is all it needs because it essentially weighs nothing. So when you're thinking about your size, when you're thinking about your method of carry, when you're thinking about your belt, thinking about the uses, weight's important. If you want a heavy ass knife, take a heavy ass knife. But if you want something that weighs nothing because you're gonna be in a place where you're moving around a lot or whatever, always check that stuff out. It does make a big difference. There are certain knives that I wouldn't carry in certain places. I want to mention this one from Turner CNC. This is a terrifying knife. I carry this sometimes if I'm going to carry it opposite a pistol because it draws just like a pistol. So the sheath is ambidextrous and it draws just like a pistol. Blade up or blade down with this one. It's double edge for the most part. It's double edge, and then it has an actual thumb indexer on there. Also, very, very interesting. And if there was just a gnarliness prize, it would probably win. And the last one, and again, all bias aside, of course, I'm quite a big fan of Ed, but I've been carrying around his Elvia with a sheath from Billy Trident, and it sits really, really low. It's almost invisible. The Alterations Limited belt makes it feel like you're not even wearing a knife. And then the smartest recommendation that I've gotten is just putting a little tiny piece of tape right at that finger index so that when you get your hand on it out of the belt, it just comes right out. So you don't have to actually grab it twice. You just have to find the tape and move it out. And this is reverse edge and blade out. That's a preference too. It's always important to think about that stuff. What are you doing? Why are you doing? How are you training? If you're training to cut something, how are you training to cut it? If you're training to defend with it, how are you training to defend with it? There always has to be a purpose for things like this. The final consideration I'll mention, and for me, we'll mention again the blade down versus blade up. If I'm going to use the other fighting styles that I'm familiar with to help me defend myself, I want blade down. I've trained this with a ton of people over many, many years. I don't have a bunch of knife fighting certifications or anything, but even early days in Long Beach at my martial arts gym out there, they were Sayak Kali. They trained Kali with Dan and Asano also. They were phenomenal. We trained weapons just alongside hand-to-hand stuff and grappling and kickboxing and whatever else. Move on to when I moved back to New York. My main training partner and 15-year Wolf Brigade member, Chris Manns, is Doug Markaida's finest student. Doug Markaida is a dishonorable fucking loser that abandoned his martial arts practice for Hollywood fame. But the techniques and skills that he's ingrained in Chris are excellent. And what he's done now is started to train everything as if it's one thing. Now, I'm saying 15 years ago to now, he and I have mixed kickboxing with grappling, with knife stuff and all this kind of stuff. And as talented as he is, that has been a huge asset and advantage for me. Something that has always presented itself is that blade down is far better than blade up for what we do and why we do it. So those are some considerations. I'll mention these makers here. Hope this is helpful. And again, this is still a relatively small group, but if there's any questions, we're always happy to answer them. None of this is gun or knife LARPing. This is all stuff that I've practiced. This is some stuff that I've actually had to utilize, and also taken enormous amounts of feedback and experience from some of the highest level people in the world. I'm very fortunate to have very, very good information and access to really anything tip of the spear that starts happening. So just wanted to share a bunch of that stuff today, show off some of these excellent things from some great people. And again, thank you so much for being here. Hope you enjoyed this.